Hi, everyone, and welcome.
Hey everyone.
How's everyone doing today? Feel free to put your videos on if you would like, but also no pressure. I have shared my screen, so hopefully all of you can see that. But before we dive in, I would love to hear from all of you, and in particular in the chat, if you could type in where you are calling from or calling in from, that would be tremendous. Philly, Madison, New York, Columbia, Albany, Canada, Wellesley. Wow, all over. Springfield. Amazing. Well, welcome to the information session for Access Distributed. My name is Jessica Holton, and I am joined by my co-founder, Manny. And we will make this session relatively casual and really open it up primarily for questions that you might have that we are happy to expand on any and everything related to Access Distributed and beyond. But for today, we will give you an overview of ourselves, why we started Access Distributed, and what you can expect as a fellow. And then we'll talk a little bit about the application and what tips and tricks we have for that, which hopefully you know by now is due on Friday. So hopefully you're all working on your videos and your questions and answers because we can't wait to get to meet you. So if that all sounds good to you, I'm going to dive right in with an introduction on myself. If you have any questions throughout this session, put them in the chat because I guarantee that if you have a question, there are at least 10 other people on this call who also have a question. So definitely use the chat to ask questions throughout. We're happy to answer them throughout or all the way at the end as well. All right, so to kick it off, my name, as I mentioned, is Jessica Holton. I am based in Brooklyn, New York. I grew up in New Jersey, and I grew up knowing that I wanted to do something in business because, in my view, as a kid, going into business was the biggest way to create a scaled impact, meaning that if I were a doctor, I could impact all the patients that I saw. Or if I were a lawyer, I could impact all of the people who I represented. Or if I was a teacher, I could I could impact all of the people who I taught. But business could go so far beyond my own reach. And so business was the clear solution to me wanting to have as much of an impact as possible. However, I didn't actually know going into business really meant after college. So when I saw all of the smart kids around me go into investment banking, and when I had a mentor of mine who was just a few years ahead of me say, hey, Jess, I think investment banking is probably a really good way for you to start your career, that's what got me introduced to the world of finance. And so I went into finance having absolutely no knowledge of what finance was all about, what a day in the life of a finance career person looked like. My family didn't understand what finance was, let alone what banking was, just because they hadn't been exposed to it as much. But I felt so lucky to end up where I ended up, which was at Morgan Stanley and where I met Manny, because I found that going into finance helped me gain skills that have helped me out throughout my entire career. I gained a network of incredible people, mentors and peers alike, who I'm still really close with today. And I found the financial independence that comes from a really high paying job in a relatively junior position. And so all of those things made me incredibly grateful to the finance world for what it afforded me. And that's why we created Access Distributed, is to open doors to students like you to have that same door opened for you, meaning entry into the finance world. So after Morgan Stanley, after doing investment banking, I went into investing at the Carlyle Group, where I focused on consumer retail companies, and then went to business school at Stanford in California, and then dove into entrepreneurship. And so I started Access Distributed with Manny. I also run a couples therapy company called Actually. And Access Distributed by far is the most meaningful, fun, favorite part of my week. And so I'm really, really honored to be in front of all of you and excited to get to know all of you. I'll turn it over to Manny to add to our founding story and, of course, introduce yourself.
Awesome. Well, nice to meet you all. My name is Manny Ajayi. I'm one of the co-founders here at Access Distributed. So I was born in Vancouver, Canada, and always thought I wanted a career in engineering, and then took an AP Econ class, really enjoyed it, decided, maybe the world of business is for me, but I had no idea what that meant. And so I went to UVA for undergrad, where took a lot of business classes and sort of started learning about that world. But again, for me, it was completely brand new. And so I had an advisor who told me to apply for an internship at Morgan Stanley. I didn't know what Morgan Stanley was. I didn't know what investment banking was, but I was very fortunate to sort of get that internship. And by landing at such a prestigious firm like Morgan Stanley, completely changed my life. And so I was very fortunate to be kind of in that bucket of people who don't know what the finance world is, but sort of stumbled my way in. And that's part of the reason why we started Access Distributed, is to be able to sort of open sort of the doors of accessibility to the industry. And so from there, I also went into private equity at TPG out here in San Francisco, where I'm based today. I also was focused on consumer retail, and within that, food and beverage specifically. And then Jess and I reconnected as classmates at Stanford. And that's where I started my first company called Panika. It was a tech platform all about creating more respectful conversations online. And I sold that business in 2019, and now I run my own investment fund called Pacific Fin Capital. And Access Distributed, like Jess, is definitely the most exciting part of my week, and interacting with you all, and it's kind of taking the lessons that I've learned so far in my career and finding ways that we can be helpful as you guys embark on the beginning of yours. And so, just if you want to go to the next slide here. So yeah, our mission is we make finance careers accessible no matter where you're coming from. Our firm belief is that talent is equally distributed, but access is not. And so we're trying to equalize the playing field by starting an organization that is specifically targeted to underrepresented students who go to non-target schools, and to give you a year-long program and connections that will help you land into the industry as well.
So the Access Distributed Fellowship, as you probably know by now, is an extracurricular program that is taken alongside your fall and spring classes of your sophomore year. We do get a lot of questions around if I'm a junior or if I'm a freshman or if I've graduated, is the fellowship for me? The short answer is probably not at this point. But the longer answer is, if you are graduating in the same year that current sophomores are graduating, whether you're doing like a 5-year program or you're graduating in 3 years, if you are graduating in the same year that current sophomores are graduating, then yes, feel free to apply. So the fellowship is designed to introduce you to the world of finance, get you all the skills and experience necessary to succeed not only in interviews, but also on the job, and create really meaningful and lasting relationships with people in the industry, as well as your cohort. And so we won't go through all of these in a high amount of detail, but it's a relatively intense program that is super impactful. It's been described as a life-changing experience, the college that you wish you could have gone to, and an event that lasts the entire year that is extremely meaningful. And so the fellowship experience starts in October 2021. Right after your applications are due, we get to work reading them, and we notify you about acceptance at the end of September, and then starts in October. It goes all the way through May, and then once you graduate, you are an alumnus of the Access Distributed Fellowship forever, and we have consistent programming, but the core of the experience is throughout this academic year. We split cohorts into about 15 fellows throughout the nation, so you'll get to know friends across the country at different schools. And honestly, I think that's probably my favorite part of the program. If I were a fellow, that's what I would really enjoy the most. And you're spending about 5 hours, give or take, depending on the week, doing assignments, cohort gatherings. We meet every Tuesday evening. You're networking, you're getting a mentor, and the entire experience is remote, done over Zoom, which of course is how a lot of things are done these days, except for 1 week for an in-person boot camp in January. It's actually over a weekend. We do plan to have that in person as of right now, but of course it's pending COVID and travel restrictions. I'm going to skip through the details here, but throughout the year, you'll be building the foundation of finance and accounting and valuation and modeling. And if any of those things sound scary, that is totally okay. Our program is designed for people who are both in majoring in business, as well as have not even taken 1 ounce of a class in anything business related. So we assume zero knowledge going into it because we're really focusing on the practical and putting it into practice, and really focused on real world experience. And so if you don't know anything about accounting or finance, or if you know everything about accounting and finance, you absolutely should apply in either way. Additionally, you'll get to know a ton of finance professionals throughout the year. We have incredible access to the best firms in finance, and you'll get to know those professionals and get really exclusive, up close and personal access to them through a variety of events that we do and mentorship. And then we help you in the spring prepare for interviews. We give you a ton of resume review, interview prep, mock interviews, help you get those interviews. And we make sure that you feel completely ready to dive into the world of interviewing when that kicks off in the spring, assuming that you do want to go into finance. And then lastly, as I mentioned, this is a built-in community forever. Manny and I are a really good example of, we met in the very beginning of our careers when we were still in college and our internships. And over the past decade or so, we've worked together, we've worked for each other, we've been advisors to each other's, mentors to each other, and really just friends to each other, supporting each other's careers throughout. And that's what we hope your cohort does as well. As everyone goes off and does amazing things, you will be part of that and supporting each other and learning from each other forever. So you should apply because you'll learn the technical skills that you need to succeed on Wall Street. You'll receive extremely hands-on weekly interview prep and coaching. You'll connect with incredible students across the country and form long-lasting relationships. You'll gain exclusive access into professionals on Wall Street, and you'll be able to participate, of course, no matter where you are.
And
so
the other thing I would quickly add on that is, so we have 5 partners who are all private equity firms. And one of the interesting things about our partnerships is that means they have exclusive spots that are actually open for Access Distributed fellows. So if you are interested in finance, if you are interested in private equity, there are opportunities at firms like Carlyle and Altamont that you can get exclusively through this program. And this will be our 3rd finance cohort. And the first 2, they've all now landed internships at Goldman, Morgan Stanley, Blackstone, Alpine, Altamont. So there's a great list of folks, and there's a bunch of alumni already in our program that are now looking out for you, and will be able to help you through your process. So we're really excited as things continue to progress, that we do have a great alumni network that's already in place who are excited to meet you.
And you should apply if you are interested in finance. So you do not have to be convinced that finance is what you want to do. That's our job to help you figure that out. So if you have any interest in a career in finance for any reason, doesn't matter what that reason is, you should absolutely apply. We are looking for sophomores, quantitatively inclined, meaning that you generally like numbers. There is a lot of accounting in finance and Excel, all of which we will teach you, but it helps if you like doing that stuff. And the last two, ambitious and dedicated. This is not a get in, put it on your resume, and never hear from Access Distributed again type of commitment. It is definitely a hands-on, relatively intense workload, but it's absolutely worth it. So if you're ambitious, dedicated, this is right up your alley, I think. Lastly, and then I'll open it up for questions, applications are due this Friday, September 10th at 11:59 Eastern, which you can apply via the website at accessdistributed.org. The program, as I mentioned, kicks off in early October. There is an in-person boot camp weekend of January 2022 over Martin Luther King Day weekend, and then we help you prep for banking interviews that come in January to May 2022. And those are internship interviews for the summer between your junior and senior year. So with that, before we open up to questions, I do want to say, just first of all, thank you for joining us here today and being interested in Access Distributed. And I really, I could not be more excited to get to know all of you through your applications. If you have any inkling or interest in applying, I guarantee that we want to hear from you. So definitely make sure that you get that application in by September 10th at 11:59 Eastern. So I'm going to open up any questions that you guys have, either about the fellowship, about us, about the application, anything at all. And in the meantime, I did get a question privately in the chat: is Access Distributed helpful for international students? So there are kind of two answers here. One is it's primarily geared towards helping you get an internship in the US for various reasons, timeline, our network, and the resources that we have dedicated. You're primarily going to be looking at interviews for positions in the United States. That being said, some of our fellows have gone abroad for their internships and then full-time. So it's not unheard of, but that is definitely our focus, is more in the US. All over the country though, not any particular city. The second thing is we meet on Tuesday evenings from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern. And so if you are in a geography that the time zone makes that very difficult, then it probably wouldn't be a good fit, because that attendance to those meetings is mandatory. All right, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, put it in the chat, either directly to me or to everyone is great.
Just curious, what would you think would be like the greatest highlight, or what has been the greatest highlight for you at Access Distributed while meeting these new fellows? And I just kind of want to hear like more about the actual experience. So if you could kind of touch upon that, that would be amazing.
You think like, what is the greatest experience from a fellow's perspective? Like, what is the greatest part of the experience from a fellow's perspective?
Yep. And also just your personal perspective too. Yeah. As the one mentoring.
I would say two things. And Manny, I'm curious to hear what you would say. And both of them have to do with the people. One is the amount of support that you get from your cohort leads, from Michael Kimple, who teaches most of the quantitative skills and leads the track, your mentors and professionals in the industry. This is a very mission-oriented organization, and everyone is really invested in our fellows' success, including our partners, including everyone who's part of the support team at Access Distributed. And we don't say that lightly. We really get to know you as a person, what is going to make you successful. We know like what you are excelling at, what you're struggling with, and we help you wherever we possibly can. And I think that's a really unique part of Access Distributed, that it's intentionally a small group of people so that we really can get to know you in a one-on-one basis. The second thing is, of course, the fellows who you are in this experience alongside. So you'll get to know, as I mentioned, like you'll get to know people who are going to do amazing things. Most want to go to finance, but they might not go to finance. They might go into consulting. They might start their own companies, they might go to grad school, become doctors or lawyers. And it's amazing that you go through this bonding experience throughout this entire year and get to know people in that way, and you'll have lifelong friendships and relationships with them. As for me, my favorite part is kind of along those lines, is getting to support incredible students and watch where they go, because everyone's doing amazing things, and it's just incredible to see where they're all headed after AD.
Yeah, I would echo kind of everything that Jess said. I think, you know, when people talk about business school a lot, they talk about the network. That's usually the number one thing they bring up. And I think the same is true here with Access Distributed, of just meeting people who are in the same life stage, who have the same interests, and starting that network early, because I guarantee in 10 and 20 years, the people you meet in your cohort are still going to be people that are very impactful in your career. So I would say that's one thing. And then just the level of training, you know, I'd say is something we hear time in and time out, is that it's really fantastic. From my perspective, I would say, yeah, the biggest thing for me is just honestly like learning from the fellows, and just like hearing about what's going on in their lives, and it's really like refreshing just to have different perspectives, because sometimes I kind of hear things from kind of my group of friends constantly, and so it's just nice to hear about like what's going on in ways, and they're really helpful to me as well. So it's definitely not a one-way street. So I'd say that those are some of the highlights for me.
Yeah, thank you for touching up on your experiences.
I see you have a hand raised.
Sorry, I had my mask on. Thank you so much for sharing this for the session. My name is Anne. I'm a sophomore at the University of Pennsylvania. I just have a short question about like the application material, especially like the videos. If you have like any specific guidelines, so like how the video should be, or like could you touch upon like other application materials and like any tips on that? Thank you.
Manny, you want to take this?
Yeah, I would say just, we're really just trying to get to know you. And so just be authentic, really weigh in on your story, and just like let us know why, you know, like you are interested in this. Again, you don't have to have much experience with finance or with private equity or banking or anything like that, but just like kind of understanding why this is of interest and why this is a fellowship that you are, you know, interested in participating over the year, I think are some key things to highlight for us.
Yeah, and the most memorable ones from over the years have really been just like kind of zeroing in on one or two threads throughout your life. Like the point of the video is truly just to get to know you. Like we're not looking for anything at all in particular. Some people do like a story of their whole life. Some people really focus on one particular aspect. And the more authentic you can be to that, the better, because that's all we're trying to do in that video. It serves the purpose of replacing interviewing you. So think about like all of the both like content and context that we would get if we could interview you one-on-one for half an hour or more. And that's what we're trying to zero in on with that video.
Thank you so much.
Other questions? I got a question in the chat about someone who's a senior who is interested in the program, as someone who wants to pursue a career in finance. Are there other programs that AD offers for students who are further along in their college career? Eventually, that is our goal. As of right now, we only have this one fellowship. However, we do encourage you to stay on our mailing list, because we're rolling out several events that might be helpful, similar to Design Your Career, which we had a couple weeks ago, as well as a really helpful newsletter that helps provide skills, context, news articles, and offer education in that way. So definitely stay part of our mailing list, but the fellowship is probably not a good fit right now. other questions? Any questions at all?
I unfortunately have to hop, but I am really looking forward to all of you applying and can't wait to see some of your faces this year. So thanks again for your interest and looking forward to reading your applications.
Thank you so much, everyone. We'll share this recording later on, and have a great night, and email us at hello@accessdistributed.org if you have any questions at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Bye, everyone.